everyone. This is Shelby Kerns, class of 1993, and welcome to the Loyal and True podcast, a podcast for logger alums. I'm coming to you today from my office in Washington, D.C.
Hi, everybody. I'm Cam Crain, class of 1988, here in Middle Tennessee.
And today we're joined by my good friend, Marv Hagedorn, class of 1974. We're really excited to have you with us today, Marv. Where are you at?
Thanks, Shelb. I am actually in Donley, Idaho. We live in Eagle, down by Boise, but we have a little vacation place that we're working on here, and so I'm pretty casual because I've been building walls today.
I think we can all agree you have the best background of any of us. You're definitely in the better spot.
Clearly,
probably everybody listening to this podcast would agree that Donley is better than Washington, D.C. or Tennessee.
Absolutely.
Honestly, anywhere.
What a beautiful view. Looks like you're in a park.
Yeah. We have a couple acres here that surrounded with ponderosa pine. It's just
Nice.
It's a beautiful place, and I'm looking at the lake. So
Oh, come on. That's great.
It's pretty nice.
A little bit of paradise that you've earned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I hope. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
One of the funny things about, I think, just being from Potlatch and our history that Cam and I talk about a lot is how there's always these intersections between different people in Potlatch, and you run into people you know from Potlatch and you immediately have this bond. And you and I have one of those stories that right out of the gate was like that. Do you remember that?
Yeah. It's funny. I just realized too that you graduated from Potlatch a year before I retired from the Navy. So
I wasn't going to point out that you graduated from Potlatch a year before I was born, but here we are.
Well, I was alive. I was 4. I remember all of it, Marv.
Yeah, and I mean it's funny because I've watched your podcast of the other people that you guys have talked to, and there are so many generations of loggers, and every generation has lived through something a previous generation never did. And so, but we all have this same common link of being Potlatch loggers and growing up there. And I think that is just very cool. When I graduated in 74, there were, I want to say 13 of us in my graduating class that had joined the military. And we had joined the Army, Air Force. There were some in the Navy. And we all, after we graduated, we all went our separate ways. And I remember I was a very young sailor, and I was checking into one of my first schools. And I was in the Navy Federal Credit Union opening an account, and I'm filling out all the paperwork. And the lady at the counter, the teller, said to this senior chief who was standing there, who I would have never talked to because I was so junior, she said, "What is the zip code of Potlatch, Idaho?" And I looked up at him and the teller. He didn't even know I existed. And I said, 83872. I think that was it, or 83855. I can't remember.
83855.
Yeah. But I said the zip code, and the senior chief turned around and looked at me, and he goes, "Who the hell are you?" And it turned out he was Dennis Knott.
Oh, wow.
Denny, and I can't remember the Wagon Wheels owners, their son, and he was a senior chief in the Navy, and that's how I met him in Pensacola, Florida.
Come on.
That's wild.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Adak, Alaska was my very first duty station. And this is a long time ago. We had about 3 hours of television every day. And it always started out with Rap with the Chap. And so the chaplain would get on, and for 15 minutes, they would broadcast just somebody from the base rapping with the chaplain. And I swear to God, when I first got up there, there's nothing else to do in the Aleutians. So we're out of the wind. We're inside our dorm, watching the TV as it comes on. And who comes on with Rap with the Chap? one of the Strong brothers.
Oh,
And I think he was 2 years behind me in high school. And he's a Seabee on the same island that I am on, in the middle of the Aleutians, rapping with the chap. And it's like, really? How can this be?
Yeah.
Okinawa, my next duty station, Tommy Linhart and I were together on Okinawa. He was at a Marine Corps base. He was a Navy corpsman. And I was at a base south of them. And it just, my whole 20-year career, weirdly enough, there was always someone from Potlatch where I was stationed.
that's incredible.
Wow.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
And in such different spots. I mean, you're going all the way from Pensacola up to Alaska, out to Japan.
Yeah. Around the world. Yeah.
Around the world. I know where Mount Chignik is in the Aleutians. I spent a summer there fishing.
You did?
Paid for
Okay.
college. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
it's barren out there in the Bering Sea.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That
just
cool.
takes it to another level of thinking about how you can always, it's a tiny town of 800. How can you find?
I know. It was just like, and especially when I want to say it was Jeff Strong. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. But I'm looking at the television, and here he's a Seabee on TV with the chaplain in the Aleutians in the middle of nowhere. And it's like, how does that happen? It's just, it's pretty crazy. Yeah.
I don't think people would believe it if they didn't, if you couldn't prove it and show them. I think it's really hard for people to believe how often that happens.
Yeah. Well, and the way we first met, Shelby, so I spent 20 years in the Navy, and I did, I was trained how to fix pretty much anything. And so as my career progressed, I ended up getting a commission, and a field commission, and I was put in charge of a special operations team that we started out in the Aleutians, at the end of the Aleutians, out in Shimia. It wasn't the end of the world, but you could see it from there. And so we started a special operations team out there, and actually pioneered what is now, and I can't believe they say this all over the place, but what is now information warfare. Our job was to screw up the Soviets and just get them to the point where they did not know what was real and what was not. And so anyway, I retired from that in 1994 and looked for work up in northern Idaho. And there just wasn't. Unless you were already logging or a farmer with land, you weren't going to work. It was really tough. So I ended up down in the Boise area, working for a semiconductor equipment company. And we made all of the equipment that Micron built their memory chips on. And that was a fascinating industry. It used all of my skills, and plus I had to learn a lot more to work on that equipment and make it work. But it was a lot of fun and very challenging. And
it was applied materials, right?
It was, and that was
okay. Wow,
Shelby's and probably your uncle.
With Ralph.
With Ralph.
Yeah. And so I got to know Ralph there. Again, the whole Potlatch thing.
Yeah.
And
he was also in the Navy, so
Yeah.
Guys kind of.
Yeah. It was pretty great. And the guy that really got me interested in the Navy was dang it. Our shop teacher, Mr. Roan.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He was in the Navy, and that's what really got me more interested in the Navy than a lot of the other services, because the Navy at the time was very independent. When you went out to sea or in a submarine or an aircraft, you were by yourself. You were dependent on you and your team. And so that was Mr. Rohn had a great influence on that career choice. Tom Yeomans also had a great influence on my career choice. I was a hellion. I was always in trouble in school. I just I didn't understand the responsibility, accountability. I just hadn't matured. And Tom Yeomans, and the sheriff one time told me, you know what you should really do? And they were right. Tom saved my butt, and I went in the Navy, and I got out of town, and a senior chief, now a retired master chief, grabbed my butt and kicked it severely so I could start to pay attention to what life was really about and do good and do things.
Was Tom the principal at that time, Marv?
Yes. Yeah, he was.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And a bunch of us the day before had skipped school the night before. And again, different generations had different things going on. We always had somebody had a keg in the trunk at school. We were out just hell raising all the time. And one night, a bunch of us went out and spray painted 74 on all the highway signs.
Marv, this is a connection I didn't know that we shared. I also did a lot of spray painting and
you guys spray painted them. We had fun moving them.
You would move. That's right. You would.
Yeah, we moved some around. We thought we were very clever.
Yeah, we painted the entire class. I think we had 63 or 64 people. We painted everybody's name on the wall in front of the Hiawatha, which was the old high school.
Was that so? Were you still in that high school in the Hiawathas?
No. We had moved into our class. Moved into the new high school in the 8th grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we did the 7th grade in the old junior high building above the ball field up by the grade school. And then we moved to 8th grade into the new building.
So were the Hiawathas empty? And so you just had that sign there that just was calling to you to spray paint?
It was that big white wall, and they had apartments in there. And so there was nobody on watch. So we just put everybody's name on there. And that was the sheriff and Mr. Yeomans. The next day called me into his office and said, yeah, you got to fix all of that quickly, or you're going to be in trouble. And so we grabbed the crew and we went out and with some paint thinner and paint remover, and we got rid of it all. And so I'm sure there was still some remnants somewhere, but we spent the next day cleaning paint. So and that was it was a bad thing to do, and I get that. But at the time, I didn't, and that was a good lesson for me that actions have consequences, and I needed something like that. So interesting days.
Yeah. So then, okay. So, you retired from the Navy and you moved to Boise and you were working at Applied Materials.
Yeah.
Let's go back there.
And this was when, the Wolf introduction, that was a year before the Wolf introduction. And all during my career in the Navy, I had figured out a way to scam my way home every fall to go elk hunting with my family. And so every fall I would come back and go elk hunting. Well, then I retired in 94, 95, they introduced the wolves. And I'm doing the numbers in my head thinking, man, these wolves are going to start eating all the deer and the elk. And they're going to decimate our population and what's going to happen to the outfitters and guides and all those things. And so I was just doing numbers, and I would go down to the legislature, to the Senate, in the Senate Natural Resources Committee, and testify about the economic impact that the wolves were going to have on our state. And the Nez Perce representatives were there, the federal, fish and wildlife representatives were there. And it seemed like I was the only guy that was going down and saying, there's a negative side to this too, and we all need to recognize that. And so I'd been doing that for a few years. And Judy Boyle, who at the time was the lobbyist for the sheep herders. We had lunch one day after one of the committee meetings, and Judy said, Marv, you should really run because you know what's going on with all this stuff. It makes sense when you testify. And I go, yeah. Never on my bucket list of things to do was get into politics. So anyway, we ended up making a bet. She bet that if I ran, I would win. And I bet if I ran, I would lose. So it was like, this is no brainer for me. And so I ran in the primary against Mark Snodgrass. And it was the most painful experience personally that I'd ever done, because I had to tell people about me, right? Had to tell them what I was going to do for them and how I was going to do it. And number one, I really didn't know how I was going to do it. It was a bet. And so I was telling everybody, I had to tell them about me and my background and experience and all that. And it didn't make a lot of sense. So at the end of the primary, I lost by 250 votes. So I'm thinking, yay, I won the bet.
That was a good bet because you couldn't lose.
I know. That's what I thought too. Yeah.
That's the best kind of bet to make.
Yeah.
Smart bet.
Well, and that was the year that Ron Sally got elected to Congress. Mm-hmm. And Senator Jerry Sweet was in our district. And Jerry resigned from the Senate to go be Ron Sally's chief of staff, which opened up a seat in the Senate in our district. So the governor appointed Shirley McCaig, who was the other representative, to the Senate. And then they called me and said, so you ran for this seat. Would you take it if I appointed you? And I'm thinking, God, I don't know Butch Otter from anybody else. I don't want to tell him I did it on a bet. So I go, okay, I'll do it. Yeah. If you appoint me, I'll do it. So the first week in the legislature in 2007, I showed up with no idea what I was doing. And then it was soon after that some of my colleagues and I were walking down 8th Street, going out to lunch.
I think it might have been the day. I think it was the day that they were going to announce your appointment, and
it could have been.
You and Cleet were walking down the sidewalk.
It was Cleet. That's right.
Yeah. I think it was the day that it was going to be announced.
Yeah, and wasn't it you and Brenda?
It was me and Lisa Kaufman.
Oh, okay. So we ran into each other, and Lisa, that's right, it was. Lisa was going to introduce you to me, and she introduced you and said, this is Shelby Kerns. And I shook your hand and I said, Kerns, are you related to the Kernses in Potlatch? And she goes, well, yeah, I am.
Come on.
So that's how it was the whole Potlatch connection over again.
Yeah, it was funny because I remember like kind of being introduced, and you were like, I know you. Like it was one of the strangest experiences because I have no idea who this guy is. And you said, I knew you were Kearns when I saw you walking down the street. You walked just like your Aunt Gladys. And I was like, who are you? It was like, I'm like, this guy is weird. What is happening?
Oh, yeah. It was so fun.
It was just this instant. And then you started telling me that you graduated with my Uncle Dave Kearns. Yeah. And then as we got to, you asked me who my dad was. And then you're like, oh, yeah, well, I also graduated with your Uncle Randy Lee and my mom's brother. So
right, yeah.
Which all of that didn't make you seem less crazy. That just really. I was like, I don't know where this is going.
It's just like, okay,
this should really be reconsidered. Yeah, this guy should not be a legislator. This should be reconsidered. Absolutely.
That's it. Yeah, you're right. You're right about that. Yeah, yeah. That was and it was interesting being appointed in the legislature and not going through the new guy legislature training, because I had no idea that what to do, what to say, what not to say, how to be nice to people. I was a retired Navy chief warrant officer, and they're like in the Navy, they're kind of like unicorns. There are just not very many of us, and when we want to get something done, we just tell someone to do it. And if it doesn't get done, we go smack them upside the head and tell them to do it again and make it right. And so I was very used to having my way, and the legislature was not prepared for a Navy chief warrant officer to be sitting in the gallery in the seats and calling people to task, unpolitely. And so I had a lot of communications learning that I really needed to work on and do. And it happened it was the same way when I was working at Applied Materials, an engineer with Applied Materials with a customer. And so, when somebody screws up, I'm used to telling somebody, hey, you really effed that up. You better go fix it. And you got to do X, Y, and Z and get it done now. Customer doesn't like you talking to them like that. And so I was like, okay, I can kind of get that. Yeah. And so anyway, I learned a lot of lessons that I hadn't had the opportunity to learn when I was in the Navy, in Applied Materials, and then the first few years in the legislature. So
were you still with Applied Materials when you started in the legislature?
No, I had left Applied Materials.
Okay.
And my dad and I had started a business where we were importing equipment from Asia. And so because I started in 2007, so I was talking to my Asian vendors in the evenings and early mornings, getting the equipment lists, and then I would send those lists out to all of my customers in North America. And I was just basically putting deals together on construction equipment, and I started importing K trucks, the little mini trucks that they have in all the other countries except here. And so I figured out how to bring them in through U.S. Customs legally, and we were kicking everybody's butt with importing those K trucks. And then I was doing that while I was in the legislature, and so sleep was hard to come by when we were in session for 3 months. So, but it was interesting. I learned a lot. I was in the transportation committee consistently through my 12 years throughout the legislature. And I learned a lot about transportation, the issues, why we do some of the things that we do. And transportation is just not about roads. It's about aircraft. It's about railroads. It's about bicycles. Mm-hmm. It's about buses. I mean, it's, moving is moving, and that falls under the transportation committees in your legislatures. And so it was a very interesting and educational time for me.
What was your favorite, if you can think about being in the legislature, is there something that you're most proud of, or that,
oh, wow.
Or a favorite memory that's not about making fun of me?
I passed, I want to say 150 to 160 different bills. One of the things that motivated me, once I understood what I was doing there, I remember when I retired out of the Navy, out of Elmendorf Air Force Base, they handed us a book when we went through it was a training on when you get out and what you do when you get out and how to be a civilian, taught by people who have never been civilians. But they handed us each this book with all 50 states in it, with the benefits that each state was providing for veterans. Mm. And I was excited because I knew I was going to come home. And so I opened it up to Idaho, and I still see that page with the Idaho seal, the name, state of Idaho below it. And the page was absolutely blank. Mm. There were zero benefits for veterans on that page. And so I kind of made it my quest to start putting some things on that page. And so every year I would run at least 3 bills just for veterans. So like veterans for non-resident college tuition. When a veteran first gets out of the military and comes to Idaho, the first year they had to pay non-resident military tuition. Mm. So I made it so they didn't have to do that. That was one of the bills. I mean, there was a lot of bills to put the veteran thing on your driver's license. We did that. It was just a lot of things that just to kind of help veterans and their families out. But probably the biggest impact that I was able to have had nothing to do with passing a bill in the legislature, but because I was there, I had this influential position where I could talk to different people and bring things together. And this lady, Dr. Suzanne Frederick, called me on a couple days before my son's wedding in December and said, "Hey, there's this medical school in Montana for osteopathic doctors that they're having a hard time getting built. I'm wondering if maybe you'd be interested in talking about seeing if we get it to Idaho." And every year I fought with the Medical Doctor Association in Idaho about getting more doctors in the state. For 12 years, every year we would have the same conversation at their pre-legislative meetings. And every year they said, "Yeah, we're working on it. We're going to fix it." We were 50th and 49th in the nation for doctor to patient ratio for all that time. And Suzanne said, "Hey, do you think we can do this?" It was like, oh, yeah, we have to do that. We have got to get something going. So I called up the guy that was in charge of building the college in Montana and asked him if he would come over and talk to us because we might be able to make him a better deal. And I went down and I talked to the governor. I named the Project Mustang, because I know Butch would love the name Mustang. And I was a Navy Mustang. And so we got the Idaho State University president on board. We got the Idaho Board of Education on board secretly. All of this was done very secretly. And in 30 days, we had moved the effort from putting that university or that medical college in Montana to putting it in Meridian. And that was, and on the 30th day, just before the governor was to announce it, he called in the chairman of the Idaho Medical Association and gave him the announcement to let him know what we were doing. Because the IMA had not done anything in the 12 years that I was there to bring up the doctor to patient ratio. And we pulled that all off in 30 days. And now we've graduated 3 classes of doctors, and there's 160 plus doctors in every class that's been graduated. We opened the school 7 years ago, and we've got 3 graduating classes so far, and we're increasing the number of doctors in Idaho. And that's to me is probably the biggest thing that I accomplished, that I feel I accomplished, just bringing that education in and getting those people trained up and getting more opportunities for Idahoans to go to med school. I think that was a big deal.
That is a big deal. Congratulations on that work. I did not know that.
I remember that.
Yeah. And it was so secret. We only had maybe a dozen people that were like read into the program to know what we were doing, so we could write the contracts. We could get the funds that we needed to match and do a bunch of different stuff. And everyone was selected because of what they could bring to the table and make this happen. And it was pretty cool. It was a pretty cool project. So
that's really cool. It sounds like that's moved the needle for Idaho and doctors. Yeah. That's great.
I think so. And it'll outlive me. So that's good. Yeah. And I didn't have to pass a bill to do it. Just bring the right people together.
Getting the work done. So then you two crossed over in other ways. You were working. Did you ever work on a project together?
Well, we were, for a time, Marv was also on the Joint Finance and Appropriations Committee, and I was working in the governor's budget office. And so we were in the same committee pretty much every morning. And so that was really fun. And I remember thinking one day, because is it Steve Fiscus was there with the tax commission? Yeah. And another classmate of yours, I think, right? Did you graduate the same year?
Yep.
And I remember thinking, there's a lot of Potlatch people in this room today.
Yeah.
A lot. So I think he was maybe at the mic answering questions for the tax commission, and we had a chair we had to sit in for the budget committee that was right. So I ended up right next to Marv, where your assigned seat was.
Right.
Which made the morning more fun usually. But
yeah.
I remember one day though, I came in and I was always late, which Marv does a great impression of me, but don't do it right now. I stopped doing this after he did this great impersonation of me, because I'd always show up a little bit late, and it was the committee room, I think, was on the third floor, so I'd have to run up the steps and I'd be out of breath and come in, but we had a proposal to keep liquor stores open. I think they had to close at 5, and it was just to keep them open until 7 or 8 or something, but it was very controversial. And and they were talking about it just before. I don't think the committee was in yet, because you couldn't have asked me this informally if the committee was in yet. So it must have been just before it gavelled in, and I walked in and you were just like, Shelby, how late can bars serve booze? Across the room. And I was like, till 2 a.m. And you were like, I knew you know. And then we had to sit down, and I was just beat red.
I knew you know. I needed
a
resource.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
You delivered.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I delivered on that. We were always just.
We sat almost right next to each other.
Yeah.
I was in the legislative chairs and desk, and then there was this little
rail.
wall. Yeah, a little rail.
Yeah.
And then Shelby just sat on the other side of that. And so, we would text each other if I was falling asleep or getting tired or doing something, or if she was doing something, we would just text each other, because when the committee was going, we really couldn't talk to each other. And so we would text each other. And Shelby came in one time, and I'm going to say this, Shelby.
I know.
She came in.
I know.
With her name tag. She came in with her name tag on instead of the red.
Because you have to wear a name tag. So there's a law that you and based on what color your name tag is, when you go to the legislature, says do you work for the governor? Are you in the House? Are you in the Senate? Do you work for a state agency? You can tell, are you a lobbyist? So you have a different color name tag that tells. So mine was, I think it was white with green lettering on it, was what mine was supposed to be.
Yes. No, red lettering. I think it was red.
Not at DFM. I think we were green.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But she came in to the meeting and sat down, and the committee meeting started, and her name tag said Shelby Kerns, personal shopper.
Instead of what usually would say, which was Shelby Kerns, Division of Financial Management.
Right. And so I'd
been late, as usual. I'd been late, and so I would always the last thing I would do is I would hang my coat up outside on the coat rack, grab my name tag out, and run in and put it on as I sat down. It's I had what I thought was a foolproof way of doing things every morning.
Yep, gonna work. Yeah.
But I also was volunteering for Just for Success, which helps women with clothes when they are trying to get jobs, and helps them with interview skills. And so there's a little shop where they can come and shop for their clothes, and the volunteers were their personal shoppers. And I had accidentally grabbed that name tag and put it on, because I had been volunteering the day before. And so I just started getting these texts that were personal shopper ? What are you talking about? And I was so annoyed, because also I hate mornings, and it's 8 a.m. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I could not, it probably took you 20 minutes to even get me to focus on the name tag. I was just annoyed by these texts about shopping. And what are you even talking about? I think it was also upside down, maybe. And
it was upside down.
And you were barely holding it together in this very serious legislative committee. It was, I was a wreck.
The PHS connection, the logger connection. I love it.
Most mornings, Shelby would come in. She was wrecked. Shelby is not a morning person at all. So, and JPAC just always started at 7 for the committee members. And so,
that's so early.
It was brutal.
It was brutal. It was tough.
The thing
and
that
you
I would forget until Marv was kind enough to act it out for me is that so the committee meets in the old Supreme Court chambers. So the way it's set up is everyone can see the door. The committee can see the door, but you don't really think about that when you sit on the other side. You just think about what you can see. So to me, I'm like coming in behind people, but they definitely could see every morning me like rushing in at 8:01. And by law, like you have to have somebody from the budget office there every day. It's
right.
it's the law. So I'd like come running in to get there on time and never really, because I'm out of breath, throwing things everywhere and trying to get up to the front to my seat. And yeah, it's always a little bit rough. Sometimes too, also, so they can see you, like I'm saying. So sometimes I would get a text from Marv that was like, I can tell what you're thinking right now. Maybe work on your poker face, Kerns. Which, to be fair, I could always tell what you were thinking as well. Neither one of us are very good at.
Yeah. I'm still not. Yeah. I have no poker face. Yeah. And whenever I do something and I try and fib about it or something, my face just turns red. I can't control that. It's just like
it just happens.
Yeah. So yeah, everybody knew what I was thinking all the time. So.
And then after that, we also worked together in the executive branch.
Right.
You were head of the Division of Veteran Services.
Yeah, I got appointed by Butch to take over Veteran Services, and that was the best job I had ever had in my entire life.
Oh, really?
Because, oh man, yes. I had almost 300 people plus about 300 patients in our nursing care. And everyone loves to take care of the veterans. So you seldom have any personnel issues with people who were not taking care of the customer. And so it was easy to motivate people to get things done. We had not had someone in that job who had been in business. I learned a lot with Applied Materials running my own profit and loss. Really learned a lot about business running my own P&L. I grew one division from, I think, $800,000 in sales a year to $7 million. And then I wrote a couple of $100+ million contracts. And so I learned a lot about business in my 11 years with Applied Materials. So I took that to Veteran Services and trying to understand the books for the state is, for business people, it's almost impossible because they look at things differently from the state point of view. So I tried to take some of the things that I'd learned working with customers and what was important to them and change the way that we kept our books so people could understand the value of what we were bringing to the table. Our veteran service officers, I think we had 11, we might have 13 now. There's 13 people throughout the state. Their sole job is to help veterans work through the VA process to see if there's any disabilities that they're eligible for. Those guys they had never seen what the total was that they brought into the state. But the disabilities, I want to say it was over $500 million that they had worked with veterans throughout the state and brought that money from the VA into the state, which that's a chunk of change. That's a lot of money that veterans are spending in mom and pop stores and gas stations and all those things that we wouldn't have if we did not have those 13 service officers. And so it was things like that I would try and put together to really help the legislature understand why is veteran services important to Idaho in general. And so that was challenging because state employees are not used to doing those kinds of things. They're used to doing things the way that they've always done them. But we got through all of that and figured it out. So, but that was really a great 3 years. I really loved being at that place. Made some great friends. we'll have lifelong friends there. And I loved going in. I would try and spend an hour every day going into the Boise Veterans Home, is skilled nursing, and just talk to the patients that lived there. That was their life, and they all had stories. Most of them were very, very well embellished and practiced, but it made them very happy to be able to tell it again. And there's some good guys that were in there. So, yeah.
I remember talking to you when a good friend of mine, her father had been in the nursing facility, and he'd passed away, and you knew him and you knew all of his stories, and that meant so much to them. Just knowing that you had taken the time to get to know him.
They were just, and that I just love those guys and gals. They were all, they're trying to, every one of the veterans are trying to do it on their own and live on their own, but they get to a point where they just can't, and they need that skilled nursing. And they don't want to go into a skilled nursing home. And I can't say as I blame them, but when they get there, they realize there's like-minded people that they're BSing with all day long. And, they have fun. There's all kinds of, they take them fishing. All kinds of really cool stuff that they wouldn't be able to do had they not been in a skilled nursing home. And so those are really valuable places for veterans and for Idahoans to show veterans that you earned this and you should use it.
It sounds like it's come a long way from the blank page that you mentioned at the beginning of that. Yeah, that's meaningful work.
Yeah.
You came a long ways from that kid that was raised in hell and
look at
needed an intervention.
Yeah, I did. And it's exactly what it was an intervention with the sheriff and Tom Yeomans. Yeah. And now we've got, I'm retired now, and my wife and I are building a shop over here. And in between all of that, we're helping with the USS Idaho, the commissioning committee. I started that before I left veterans. And now this next spring, we're going to be commissioning the submarine USS Idaho. And that's a big deal too. That's a ship.
Huge.
Yeah. That's a ship that's going to last for 35 years, that will never have to be refueled. It's nuclear powered. Yeah. And we've raised a lot of money for the crew. We're going to decorate the inside of the ship with Idaho scenes and memorabilia. And we bring the crew here periodically to come visit for different things. And yeah, that's a good thing too. The Veterans Cemetery, you guys might have heard, we had a memorial that we dedicated last Friday to Carrie French, who was the first woman KIA in Idaho. And so that was a very moving ceremony and a beautiful statue. Our cemetery is that was another thing. I used to go out once a week. I'd go help the guys in the cemetery dig the holes. And put people in, because I thought that was an important thing for me to understand what that process is, how they go through that, what they think and how they do all of that. And if people had the ability to see that, they would be so proud of those guys. Those guys just are so respectful and take such good care of that cemetery. It's just such a great place. Idaho is such a great place. We're so lucky to be able to have lived here.
That's true.
Marv, take us back to high school and what you are maybe most nostalgic about when you look back at Potlatch High School, and what your takeaways are from growing up there.
You got to know and help your neighbors when you could help. And it was like, it was just that. When you had the ability to help your neighbor, you did that, because there might be a time where you would have to ask your neighbor to come help you. And that's how we grew up. And that was like normal for us. So I go in the Navy and nobody even knows their neighbors, right? I mean, it's just, and I retire and come home to Meridian. Same thing. Nobody even got to know their neighbors. So since my days in Potlatch, I have always worked very hard to get to know my neighbors and get them to know me, and always volunteer to help them. And they reciprocate. And that's, in my opinion, that's how life should be. I had some
that's really hardwired. That's really hardwired in the Potlatch culture.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I now that you say that, I think about my uncles. I spent a lot of time. I was so grateful to have all my awesome uncles growing up. And with every one of them, at some occasion, we would have pulled over and helped somebody.
Yeah.
And there were times when we needed help too, but it's what you did.
Right.
It was just a natural extension of who you were, you know?
Yeah. You never drove past somebody on the road.
Right.
Oh yeah. No.
That would be a sin. It really would be. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's true. And it's still like that. I'll call my mom or talk to my brother, and in the winter, it's the same thing. He will have gone to pull somebody out of the ditch. Ty will be out, what's Ty doing? Well, he's got to go pull this person out or do this. And they're always helping somebody move equipment. If somebody calls and asks for help, you just say yes.
Wouldn't it be nice if the whole world was just like that?
It really would be. And you can say that. I mean, it's definitely not how it is, here. I think, like you say, a lot of people don't, I don't know all my neighbors for sure.
Yeah. It's just, people are so busy now. You have to prioritize everything that you do. And one of the things that I've learned as I have gotten older, is there's some things that are not going to last forever. Like me. So I probably should take the time to do some things that I've been putting off for a really long time and go do those things, have some fun, say hi to somebody, or go visit. This week, we're actually going to Florida to visit all my Navy friends. We're going to have a reunion.
Oh, right on.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Yeah, everybody's looking forward to that. That was because we were a very small community. The things that we did, we fixed all the equipment that they used to spy on all the enemies that we had. And so all of us were a little bit geeky, and had just enough time to play tricks on each other that were really well thought out and fun. And so that was, it'll be good to see some of these folks again and just reminisce about some of the stupid stuff we had to do. So, yeah.
Back in Pensacola?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It'll be fun.
Tennessee loves to vacation down there, Marv, just so you know.
I bet. Yeah.
From here, they can just hop on a quick flight or a 8-hour drive and head down. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got one of my best friends is in Tennessee, and I can't remember the name of the town that he's at, but he was on my team the last tour of the Navy that I did.
Okay.
And so we went through cold weather survival. We went through all kinds of stupid stuff. They were trying to make us geeks into semi-SEALs, and we always had somebody was getting hurt, breaking something. It was just, man. But what we were doing, they needed some geeky type people to figure those things out. Mm-hmm. So, that was interesting times.
So probably shop class, had a hand. Mr. Roman had a hand in that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, big time. And Jim Haddock. I struggled with math for many, many, many years until I got into Jim's class, and it was like, I don't know what happened, but he tripped something in my mind that, algebra, geometry, all of those things was like, it was just clicking in my brain, which I really needed when I went in the Navy, for all the electronics that we worked on, all the computers, the programming, Boolean algebra, all of the things that we had to do. If it weren't for Jim Haddock and his ability to make my brain work the way that it worked with math, I would have not been successful in the Navy at all. So he's another person that I owe a great debt of gratitude.
That is great to hear, but I have a very important question about Jim. Did he have facial hair at that time?
He had a mustache.
He had a mustache. He didn't have the
always. I think always.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, it was like a Fu Manchu.
Okay, he had that in the 80s when I was there.
Yeah.
And in the 90s when I was there. Did he hit you with any erasers?
Yeah. In fact, when I was teaching in the Navy, I taught electronics and stuff. I threw erasers just like Jim Haddock did, and I felt so proud. Somebody would go to sleep in my class, boom, I'd nail them. Yeah.
Nice.
I love how, one of the things that I probably should have anticipated when we started doing this and talking to people is how much some of the same names would come up. All of the, the teachers who really influenced everyone and Mr. Haddock. I have to call him Mr. Haddock. I'm never going to be able to call him Jim. Never. He's a reoccurring name. He really had a big impact, I think, on everyone in this class, and not just the erasers that were thrown at us. But
what's so funny, my last year or second to last year in the Senate, Jim came down and came into my office and wanted me to run a bill that I didn't know anything about. But he taught me about what it was about, and it made a lot of sense to me. And it was so hard for me not to call him Mr. Haddock. It was like, God. But I mean, that's how you grow up. That's instilled in you. And in fact, what he was interested in doing, I tried running 2 years, and I couldn't get it passed. And I think it finally passed a couple of years after I left. But he, even though he's retired, he's not giving up and changing the world. He's still doing good things. So
much like you are.
Yeah. I had good trainers, good mentors.
I also love that that Mr. Round, I loved shop class. I was terrible. I was terrible at it, but
I love shop class too. Shelby, when I went to see Mom, last month, I still have the duck. He would have us make the ducks with the silly feet on the.
I still have my duck too.
Do you have your duck?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Did you make a Marv? Did you make the little duck? You'd walk the duck and it would go flip, 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 flip.
No, we had a funnel. I still have my funnel.
A funnel? Yeah. What was the funnel?
The funnel was we had to shape metal and solder it all together to make a funnel.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah. And then
you're kind of next level. I don't think that you would trust me with that.
Yeah, that seems like not something.
He
didn't do metal shop when I had him. He only did wood shop. Yeah,
we did. We had like 4 or 5 different projects that we had to do in shop class. And I think one was like a little table. One was a funnel. And they were out of different materials. So you had to, acrylics. I remember we had to cut a piece of acrylic into a piece of jewelry. So most of us made like a ring. And so you had to use the jigsaw and cut that all out and then sand it down. And so there were different materials that he had in all of these projects that you had to figure out how to use. Yeah.
How cool.
Yeah.
Can you imagine him with a 3D printer? Oh my God.
I know. You know what? I bought a 3D printer and I've been printing stuff, and I have thought that exact same thing about Mr. Roan. What he would do with a 3D printer, because he was one of those guys that was always thinking outside the box. That's pretty cool.
That is really cool.
And I love how all these, experiences with Mr. Yeomans, Mr. Haddock, Mr. Roan set you up for such success. It's really
well, but I think one of the things you got to remember, they paid a great deal of pain for me to be successful, because they had to put up with a young character that was immature, constantly trying to find trouble, and just on the edge of really being in trouble. And so, and I think there were a few people in our class that were like that, but all the classes had the clowns. And I was fortunate that I learned a lot of lessons when I was younger in high school. Don't throw dynamite at things because it sometimes blows up.
You had to learn that, and
yeah, I mean, you don't think about those things, when you're young, until somebody goes.
You don't want to hold the dynamite, that's for sure.
I watched a lot of Bugs Bunny and learned it.
Yeah, Kenny Osterlin and I had some experiences with dynamite before we went into the military that taught us a lot of lessons. And it was really old dynamite that no one should have been around, but we were, and we did. And it was things like that. We were kids, and we'd walk over every hill just to see what was on the other side. We're just curious. And sometimes we'd find things that we probably shouldn't have. So, yeah.
Just had to find a way to channel all of that in the right direction. All of that curiosity and energy and
fortunately for me, fortunately for me, I went in the military, and a chief kicked my ass and showed me the difference between just screwing off and really making a difference. And I learned those lessons, and I became a chief and taught young kids coming into the Navy the same kind of lessons. And that's what a chief does. And so, it's been good. Potlatch is a good place to grow up.
It is. And I love how you went from there and just have had this incredible life of service and ended up back in Idaho. And
you kept learning. I'm so impressed with your story, Marv, about how you just continue to be a lifelong learner. And it led you, through that whole series of adventures to where you are now, which is clearly a great spot. Yeah,
it really is. And it's, I think that's an important part of life. I think when you stop learning, or when you stop being adventurous and trying new things, I think life is going to stop. I just, you're just, what's the point? If you're going to be here, have fun, do something, make it positive. All right, you guys. Thank you for the opportunity.
Marv. Thank you, Marv. What a pleasure. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Loggers.
Take care.
Go Loggers.
Go Loggers. Yep. Bye-bye.